Before we crack open tonight's cursed can of content, I just want to say a big thank you to all our subscribers, and an extra sinister shout out to the loyal members of the Sinister Elite. You legends help keep the darkness alive. If you're enjoying the stories and want to take it a step further, hit that like button, make sure you're subscribed, and consider joining the Sinister Elite by clicking that join button below. Members get access to creepy custom emojis and exclusive Sinister Elite badges that level up the longer you survive with us. It's like loyalty, but spookier. All right, lights off, headphones in, and let's summon something we'll all regret. There's a certain kind of person who signs up for a lightly guided hike through the remote Appalachian backcountry, and not one of them has ever read the waiver. I'm Dean, born in Boone, raised in a tent, and I've been leading Appalachian wilderness tours for 9 years. And every time, without fail, I give them the one rule that keeps people from ending up in a milk carton memorial slideshow. Don't step off the trail after sundown. Not for a bathroom break. Not for a selfie with a squirrel. Not to pee on a poison oak bush and call it dominance. I don't care if Bigfoot himself offers you beef jerky. Stay on the damn path. Of course, they all laugh like I'm just being colorful. It was day 1 of the trip, and I stood beside my busted-up Chevy Trailhawk, loading gear while my newest batch of trail fodder trickled into the ranger station parking lot. The sun was just starting to dip behind the peaks, and the cicadas were warming up for their nightly scream fest. I slapped a mosquito off my neck and eyed the group like a teacher on the first day of summer school. First out of the Uber was Mandy, the influencer. Oversized sunglasses, selfie stick, bedazzled backpack that probably weighed less than her dog. She said, spinning for her phone. The vibes out here are insane. Next, Clint and Terry, a pair of retirees in matching cargo vests with more fishing lures on them than actual fishing poles. Clint offered me a firm handshake and a harder stare. Ex-Navy, we don't scare easy. Great, that means they'd die second. Then we had Noah, the quiet type. 20-something shaggy hair, hoodie in 80-degree weather. Looked like the kind of guy who spends time on Reddit asking if Mothman has a girlfriend. Which, fair question. And finally Trish, my assistant guide. She used to be a forest ranger until something touched her shoulder one night near Widow's Gap, and she noped into private guiding. Now she works with me, and when I say works, I mean she carries the satellite phone and threatens to tase people who try to pet the snakes. After the usual welcome speech, the one where I tell everyone to treat the forest like it's watching because it is, I handed out our glowing orange lanyards, aka "Don't shoot me, I'm a tourist" tags, and started the hike. The first leg of the trail was easy. Wide dirt path, steady incline, dense green canopy overhead. I did my usual tour shtick, stories about moonshiners, Civil War ghosts, the time a black bear unzipped a tent and stole a whole bag of Funyuns. Everyone was laughing. Even Noah cracked a smile when I told them about Gassy Greg, the Appalachian cryptid who only appears when someone farts near a sulfur spring. Then the trail narrowed. Shadows stretched longer. We stopped at a wooden overlook called Deerbone Ridge, named for the antler fragments locals used to find there. That's when I gave the rule. I stopped mid-stride, turned to face the group, and dropped the smile. This next part's important, so shut up and listen. That always gets their attention. Once the sun drops below the ridge, I said, pointing to the horizon line where the trees burned gold. We do not step off the trail. No shortcuts. No off-path wanderings. You stay on the dirt. Got it? They all nodded, some half laughing, others blinking like I'd told them not to eat yellow snow. People who step off the trail after dark? I said, lowering my voice. They come back changed. If they come back at all? Mandy raised a skeptical eyebrow behind her sunglasses. Is that like a local superstition or... No. Trish cut in flatly. It's a local fact. We made camp just before sunset, near a fire ring built by some long-gone Boy Scouts. I checked everyone's packs while Trish set up the bear lines. Mandy was live-streaming the wilderness glam moment to her followers, while Clint tried to start a fire using flint and spit. Night fell hard and fast. Out here, there's no light pollution, just the blackness of a sky stuffed with too many stars. The woods felt like they were listening, breathing. And then we heard it. A rustle. Not a squirrel, not a raccoon. Something heavier. Something that moved quietly for its size. Clint straightened up, staring into the trees. Probably a deer. Trish didn't move. She just whispered, "That's no deer." Noah turned pale. I stepped forward, put a log on the fire, and kept my voice calm. "Everyone stays close tonight, and remember the rule." They nodded, nervous now. As the fire popped and cracked, Mandy leaned closer to Noah. "He's just trying to scare us, right?" Noah didn't answer, because out in the dark, just past the edge of the firelight, something was watching, and it hadn't blinked once. The fire popped so loud it made Mandy jump and spill half her trail mix into the dirt. Clint chuckled and leaned back on his foam pad. "You folks get spooked easy. These woods are full of sounds. Doesn't mean anything's out there." Trish didn't laugh. She tightened the strap on her headlamp and scanned the tree line without blinking. "You hear the silence?" No one answered, because she was right. The bugs had stopped chirping. No crickets, no owls. Just the fire crackling and the slow, anxious breaths of people who suddenly realized how far they were from anything paved. I leaned over to grab my mug and took a casual sip of coffee, even though my hands were shaking a little. "Y'all ever heard of the trail echo?" Mandy perked up. "Is that like a ghost?" "Ooh, is this story time? Let me go live." "No live," I said quickly. "You don't want to broadcast this kind of story. You want it to die with your brain cells in the morning." She pouted but shut off her phone. I stirred the embers with a stick. "There's a part of this trail that loops back on itself. Not on any map, not marked by signs. But people who step off the path sometimes walk for hours, and when they finally find their way back, they're wrong." "Wrong how?" Noah asked. He hadn't moved from his little log seat. His hoodie was pulled tight around his face like he wanted to hide from the forest itself. "They come back remembering different things. One guy said he was gone 10 minutes, but his wife said he vanished for 4 days. Came back with pine sap in his veins and dirt packed under his fingernails so tight, it was like the forest tried to keep him." Clint gave a loud, dismissive snort. "Old mountain tales." I looked him dead in the eyes. 3 years ago, a kid from Asheville wandered off to take a leak during an evening hike. We found his body up in a tree, 30 feet up, sitting, eyes open, like something perched him there. That shut Clint up. Trish added, "He didn't fall. No broken bones, no blood, just placed." That was when we heard it again, a low shuffle from the dark, like someone walking on dry leaves just beyond our sight. Everyone turned. A shape shifted between the trees. It was too far away to make out clearly, but there was a rhythm to the movement, like it was circling us, watching, waiting. "Backs to the fire," I said quietly. "Make a ring. Now." To their credit, they listened. Even Mandy, who looked like she might puke up her electrolyte gummies. We sat in silence for a while, eyes scanning the tree line. The only sound being the soft breeze nudging the flames and a distant drip of water from a nearby creek. Then Clint stood up. "I'm telling you, it's nothing. Probably a raccoon or a bear or one of those long-legged deer or—" "Clint!" I snapped. "Sit. Down." But he was already walking toward the tree line, flashlight swinging wide. "I ain't scared of no damned ghost story." He stepped off the trail. Just one step. Just one. The dirt under his boot looked the same. The woods didn't suddenly burst into flames. But the second his foot hit that untouched earth outside the clearing, the woods changed. The shadows deepened. The shape watching us vanished. And the air? It got cold. Not chilly. Cold. Like something had sucked all the warmth out of the world in a single breath. Clint turned to grin at us, teeth flashing in the firelight. "See? Nothing to—" He froze. Not like he got scared. I mean literally froze. Mid-sentence. 1 foot planted. Flashlight still on. mouth open. Then he turned. But it wasn't like turning normally. His head moved too slow, and his neck stretched in a way that shouldn't have been possible without a lot of broken cartilage. Terry gasped. "Clint?" He didn't answer. His flashlight flickered. Then with a stiff, puppet-like gait, he turned and walked deeper into the trees. "Nope," Trish whispered. "Nope. Nope. He's theirs now." Mandy whimpered. "What the hell does that mean?" I stood up slowly. "It means we don't go after him." Terry shook her head, face pale. "But he's my husband." "I'm sorry," I said, and I meant it. "But that wasn't your husband anymore." Noah spoke in a small voice. "He just stepped off the trail." "Yeah," I said. "That's all it takes." We stayed up the rest of the night. No one slept. Every time someone closed their eyes, they'd snap them back open with a jolt, convinced they heard footsteps. When the sun finally rose over the ridge, the forest came back to life. Birds chirped, bugs buzzed. It was like nothing had ever happened. Terry didn't speak. She just stared at the trees. And Clint? He didn't come back. Not then anyway. Not the way we remembered him. The sun didn't rise. It snapped on. That's how it feels out here. One minute you're wrapped in the belly of blackness, listening to the trees breathe, and the next you're blinking into gold-lit fog and pretending you didn't almost piss yourself 12 times between 2 and 4 a.m. We broke camp early. Terry hadn't moved from her log. Her sleeping bag was still rolled up, untouched. She just sat there holding Clint's canteen and whispering to herself. Trish tried talking to her, but Terry stared past her like she was trying to hear someone from far away. Someone we couldn't. I was stuffing the tent into my pack when Noah approached me, holding a spiral notebook. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Sure, long as it's not, what was that thing last night?" Because the answer is either don't know or don't want to know. He gave a tight, nervous smile. "Fair. But, you said this trail loops on itself?" "Yeah, sort of. There's places where the trees move. Old Cherokee legend says the woods remember paths the way people remember dreams. They forget, then mix them up, then remember them wrong." He flipped the notebook around. "I made a map, just for fun. Yesterday's route? Doesn't line up." I took a look. He'd marked out our path, turns, rises in elevation, streams, boulder landmarks, the whole deal. And he was right. Somehow we'd passed the same grove of fire-bent birch trees twice. And that log bridge we crossed? It was drawn in 2 places on his map, with a different river underneath each time. I stared at it for a few seconds longer than I should have. "Burn that before lunch," I said. "Things like that, they attract attention." Noah didn't argue. He just nodded and tucked it into his pack. Smart kid. Terry finally stood up, glassy-eyed and silent, and started walking. We didn't stop her. I don't think she was really with us anymore. Just following the group because her feet remembered how. The second leg of the hike was rougher, less maintained. The trees were older here, and they grew too close together, like they were trying to keep us out. I caught Trish glancing at the shadows between trunks too often. "Talk to me," I said quietly, keeping my voice low enough not to spook the others. She didn't look at me. I thought I saw him. My stomach dropped. "Clint?" She nodded once. Far back, between the trees, but something was wrong with his arms, like they were too long, or tied together behind his back. "You sure it was him?" "No," she whispered. "That's the problem." We stopped around midday at a clearing with a massive black stump, the remains of a lightning-struck pine, burned out and hollow. Mandy called it a nature witch's hot tub, which was a sentence I immediately regretted hearing. Everyone sat to eat. Terry didn't touch her food. She was staring into the tree line again, lips moving without sound. Then she stood up and walked toward the trees. "Whoa," I said, jumping to my feet. "Hey, don't do that." "I heard him," she whispered. No, you didn't. He's calling me. It's not him, Terry. She stopped at the edge of the clearing, toe hovering just above the untouched soil beyond the trail. Then she turned back to us. Her face had changed. It was subtle, just off enough to feel wrong. Her expression was too relaxed, like she was imitating a calm person, not actually being one. Terry, Trish said gently. Step back. She looked at us, smiled, then dropped Clint's canteen on the dirt and walked into the trees without another word. I didn't follow. Trish didn't either. And neither did Noah or Mandy. We all knew better now. 2 down, Trish muttered, checking the GPS. Keep this pace up and we'll be hiking solo by Thursday. Mandy finally spoke. Why aren't we calling for help? I motioned to the satellite phone. You're welcome to try. I charge it every night. Signal never dies. Battery never drops. But the second you dial out, Trish finished for me. It only rings back. That shut her up again. We moved on. Around mile 8, the trees started leaning in a little more. I don't mean metaphorically. I mean they were literally bent at strange angles. Like the wind had pushed them halfway and they just stopped cooperating. And that's when we saw it. A figure. Up ahead. Just standing in the middle of the trail. It looked like a hiker. Wide brim hat, red flannel, boots. Motionless. We stopped as a group. Another guide? Mandy asked. Nope, I said immediately. Lost camper? Nope. Well then, who the hell? Not who. What? The figure stood perfectly still. Didn't breathe. Didn't shift. Not even the fabric of its clothes moved in the breeze. Trish nudged my arm. Look. Its feet weren't touching the ground. The shadow underneath it didn't match the sun's direction. And then, just as Mandy stepped forward to get a better look, it jerked its head toward us. Not a turn. A snap. Like its neck had no muscle, just a rusty hinge. Mandy yelped and stumbled back. I grabbed her and shoved everyone behind me. And in that blink, the figure was gone. No sound, no footsteps, just a shimmer between the trees where something had been that shouldn't have. We hiked fast after that. Real fast. By the time we made camp for the night, nobody had any appetite. The air was wrong again. And sometime after midnight, I heard someone, or something, whispering just beyond the firelight. It was using Clint's voice. You ever been the last one awake at a campfire? Just sitting there poking at the glowing coals with a stick, staring at the edge of the trees because something's off, but you can't explain it? That was me last night. Again. Trish had finally dozed off with her arms crossed and one eye half open like she didn't trust sleep anymore. Noah was passed out next to his pack, mumbling about string theory or haunted forest algorithms or whatever it is cryptid nerds dream about. Mandy had surprisingly stopped talking and was curled up inside her sleeping bag, earbuds in, probably listening to true crime podcasts and learning absolutely nothing from them. Me? I sat there like a middle school janitor on his 7th smoke break, just tired of other people's bad decisions. And that's when I heard it. Dean. A whisper, soft, warm, right behind my ear. I didn't turn. That's key. You never turn toward a whisper out here. You don't flinch, don't react, and you sure as hell don't answer. It said it again, slower this time. Dean. Sounded like Clint, but wrong. Like Clint if his throat had been filled with water. If someone had learned his voice phonetically from a cassette tape and decided to cosplay it at a Halloween haunted house. Dean, I saw what's down there. Still didn't move. Just kept poking the fire. My pulse, however, was throwing a rave in my neck. Come off the trail, it purred, closer now. Let me show you what's underneath. Underneath. That word hit me like a punch to the gut. There's always been a theory among the old locals, the ones who don't use the internet and still believe TVs watch you back, that the Appalachian woods aren't just deep, they're layered, and if you step wrong, you fall through. That's why the rule exists. That's why I never break it. Not for anyone. The whisper faded like smoke. I stared into the fire until the last coal died out and morning started leaking into the forest. We packed up fast. No one needed a reminder that we were down 2 people. Mandy didn't ask about Terry. Noah didn't mention Clint. It was an unspoken agreement now. If someone vanished, we don't look. We don't chase. We keep moving and pray the forest forgets about us. "Where are we headed today?" Mandy asked, like this was still a tourism adventure and not an open casket hike. "Old rail camp up near Widow's Gap," I said. "Used to be a logging station in the 40s before everyone there died in a rock slide. Except they never found the rocks." Mandy blinked. "Is that a joke?" "Nope." She shook her head and muttered, "Worst Airbnb review ever." By late afternoon, the fog had rolled in. Now normal fog is like milk in the air. White, soft, maybe a little eerie if you squint. But Appalachian fog? That's different. It's thick, almost greasy. It moves when there's no wind. And sometimes, just sometimes, it hums. We passed a tree that had 7 claw marks across the trunk, each one higher than my head and curved like ribs. Noah paused to take a picture, but the screen on his phone turned solid black and refused to turn off for an hour. Mandy tried to film a TikTok rant about the demonic Verizon dead zone, and ended up with 3 seconds of static followed by a frame of her own face. Only it was older, sallow, and had someone else's eyes. She didn't try again after that. At sunset, we reached the rail camp, or what was left of it. Rotten cabins, rusted rails, an old water tower leaning like it was drunk. The ground was littered with moss-covered tools, dented lanterns, and broken boots half swallowed by dirt. "This place feels cursed," Mandy muttered. "Good. That means it's safer than it looks," I said. "Cursed places usually keep out the living dead curious types." Noah knelt beside an old foundation stone. "There's carvings." "What do they say?" He brushed the dirt away. Just one phrase, "Stay on the path." Burned into the rock. My skin crawled. Trish and I locked eyes. She didn't say anything, but her hand hovered closer to her hip pouch, the one with the emergency flare, the bear spray, and a bone-handled knife carved from some animal she refuses to name. We set up camp inside the collapsed frame of a tool shed. Better to have something at our back than sleep open again. I laid the fire pit just outside the shed, right near the path. And that night, like clockwork, the forest came alive again, but not with sound, with echo. Not voices this time. Footsteps. Multiple. All around us. Slow, deliberate crunches on dry leaves. Mandy squeezed her eyes shut. "I'm not listening, I'm not listening, I'm not listening." A stick snapped, right outside the door. Then a soft, familiar voice said, "Trish, it's Clint. I'm back. I saw the valley. You were right. I should have listened." Trish stood, gripping her knife. "Don't," I hissed. "I know it's not him," she growled. "But he's using memories now. Mine." She turned to the group. "Everyone stay close. We'll leave at first light. We're getting too close to the center." Noah blinked. "Center of what?" She didn't answer, but I knew. The trail wasn't leading us deeper into the mountains anymore. It was leading us beneath them. And below the Appalachian Mountains, something waits. The Appalachian Mountains don't have a bottom. That's something you learn after enough years out here, when the trees start to bend the wrong way and gravity feels more like suggestion than law. You get the sense after a while that the forest isn't a place. It's a layer, like skin. And if you peel it too far, you stop seeing muscle and start seeing what's underneath. We were getting close to that layer now. I could feel it. So could Trish. And I think Noah had suspected it for a while, but today was the first time he said something about it. He waited until we were deep into a patch of fog-drenched hemlocks, each tree leaning slightly inward like they were all gathered to hear a secret. "I don't think we're going in circles," he whispered. I glanced back. "What makes you say that?" "Because if we were, we'd still be here." He pointed down at the dirt trail beneath our feet. The path was different, too wide, too clean. No fallen branches, no rocks. The soil was dark gray and almost smooth like it had been swept. Something's maintaining this part, he said. Trish muttered, "That's not maintenance. That's feeding." We kept walking. Mandy hadn't spoken since last night. She'd sat up straight in her sleeping bag, listening to the whispers until sunrise. She looked pale now, unplugged, like whatever was trying to lure us had gotten close with her but didn't quite finish the job. I let her walk in the middle of the group, safer that way. Around noon, we hit a fork in the trail. Now here's the thing. There are no forks in this trail. That's the whole point. One way in, one way out. That's how I've always guided it. That's why the rule is simple. Left leads down, Trish said. You can feel it in your legs. She was right. The air to the left felt heavier, like we were already descending, even just standing there. Rye looks safer, Mandy croaked. First thing she'd said in hours. Because it wants you to think that, I said. Mandy turned to me. And what do you want me to think? I opened my mouth but stopped. Truth was, I didn't want her to think anything. I just wanted her to follow the rule. So we went left. It got colder. Fast. The trees thinned out, revealing a strange open glade filled with stones arranged in a loose spiral, like crop circles, but made by someone drunk and possibly possessed. The center of the spiral held a single object, a mop. Dirty, dry, leaned against a rotting log like someone had just set it down mid-shift and walked off. I didn't say anything. Neither did Trish. But we both saw it. And we both knew it hadn't been there when we came through last year. Was this a cleaning station? Mandy asked, voice uncertain. Not unless you're trying to clean your soul, Noah muttered. We stepped around the spiral, carefully. The air inside it felt thin, like altitude sickness in reverse. I looked back at Mandy just in time to see her wobble slightly, just a lean, not even a full step. But her boot kissed the grass outside the trail, a tiny movement, a violation. Hey, I barked. Stay on the damn path. She jerked back. I didn't mean to. Trish was already beside her, grabbing her arm. Did you feel anything? Mandy blinked. Like static, like something noticed me. Trish nodded. Then don't move again. We didn't explain. There wasn't time. That night, the fog came back. Not rolling in, just appearing. 1 second it wasn't there, the next it was curling around our boots like vines. We made camp near a stone formation that resembled a collapsed staircase. No fire tonight. Just blankets, silence, and the distant sound of singing. Yeah, singing. Low, guttural, with words I couldn't understand but recognized anyway. Noah said it sounded like the song he used to hear in sleep paralysis. Mandy said it was the same voice that told her to step off the trail and come meet the others. Trish sat sharpening her knife. She didn't look up once. The singing didn't get closer, but it didn't stop either. It just kept echoing from the trees, like it was waiting for a chorus. Right before dawn, Noah shook me awake. Dean, he whispered, pointing toward the trees. Do you see that? I sat up. Something moved at the tree line. Not a person, not an animal, just movement, like the forest was breathing, like the roots were pulsing, and something was stepping out. One leg at a time, long limbs, pale, jointless, like someone had carved them from candle wax and stretched them wrong. No face, no eyes, just a mouth, too wide, chewing something slowly. Something that looked like fabric. Orange fabric. I reached for my pack, my lanyards. We were missing one. The thing chewing on the orange lanyard didn't move like it was curious or confused. It moved like it knew us, like it had been waiting. It didn't lurch or stumble like some zombie out of a bad TV show. It glided, smooth, silent. Its limbs flexed in ways that felt calculated, not human, but not completely unnatural either. Like a puppet operated by someone who had read about people but never actually met one. It chewed the lanyard, lips curled up in a twitchy grin. Then it dropped the fabric, opened its mouth, and spoke. "Hey, gang," it said in Clint's voice. "Trail's looking clear up ahead." Noah let out a panicked whisper. "Nope, nope, nope, nope. That's not fair. It's not supposed to talk." Mandy covered her ears and curled into a ball. Trish stood slowly, keeping her hands low and her blade out. "Dean." "I see it," I muttered. "Don't engage. Don't speak. Don't listen." But the thing took a step closer, its mouth stretching wider. It didn't have eyes, and yet I could feel it looking at us, measuring, studying, maybe trying to decide which face to wear next. Then it said something worse. "Terry says she misses you." That one hit like a gut punch. Trish visibly flinched. Noah choked out, "It knows our names." "Of course it does. The second you step off the trail, it learns you. It files you, like a bloodhound cataloging your scent, or worse, like a bored god scrolling through its saved profiles." "Back away," I said. "Slow. Keep your feet on the path." We retreated, keeping eyes on the thing until the fog swallowed it again. But long after it vanished, the sound of chewing lingered. Wet. Deliberate. We didn't sleep again that night. When the sun rose, none of us said a word. We just packed up and walked. Mandy was trailing behind, pale as a ghost and twitching every time a bird chirped. Noah hadn't looked up from his compass since we broke camp, muttering things under his breath like, "Magnetic interference is deliberate, and we're not on the map anymore." He wasn't wrong. The landmarks were gone. The river was silent. The birds flew in circles. And worst of all, the trail had changed again. The dirt wasn't natural anymore. It was smooth and gray, and curved in perfect lines, like it had been designed. "You feel that?" Trish asked. "Yeah," I said. "It's leveling." The trail was no longer rising or falling with the mountain. The incline had stopped altogether, and it wasn't because we were at a peak. We were in a loop, the kind that wasn't supposed to exist in 3 dimensions. Around midday, we saw the shack, just standing there in the middle of nowhere, like someone had dropped it from a helicopter. It was crooked, one window cracked, door hanging half off the hinges. Looked like an old ranger post, probably abandoned in the 70s when people still tried to catalog this stretch of forest before giving up and letting it eat their records. We approached slowly. Inside, the place smelled like mildew, sulfur, and wet paper. The walls were covered in peeling maps and scrawled messages. Noah read one aloud. "The trail is not a place." Another read, "Only one rule, do not break it." A third, "If it looks like your friend, it isn't." That one was fresh, still dripping. There was a desk in the corner, and on it, a radio. Analog, battery-powered, surprisingly intact. I turned the dial. Static. Then voices, garbled, whispering, layered. A dozen voices speaking at once, overlapping, hissing, murmuring things like, "Don't look back. It's still behind you." She stepped off. Then the static broke into singing, that same low, wet choir from the night before. Mandy screamed and ran out of the shack. "Wait!" I called after her. She tripped. I saw her foot hit the soft moss just beyond the path. It squished like something living. She froze. Her head jerked up. Her face went blank. "No! No, no!" I rushed forward. "Mandy, get back on the path. Now!" She turned toward me, smiling too wide. "Dean," she said sweetly. "I understand now." Trish grabbed my arm and yanked me back. "She's gone." And she was right. Even though Mandy stood there, smiling at me, wearing the same backpack and boots and glittery sunglasses. She wasn't in there anymore. Something else was wearing her like a costume, like a rented face. "I'll catch up," she said in a voice that tried to sound normal. And then she turned, stepped off fully into the trees, and vanished into the fog. No goodbye, no scream. Just gone. We had to keep moving. It was just the 3 of us now, me, Trish, and Noah. I could see it in Trish's eyes. She was scared, Not of the things watching us, but of what she might have to do if one of us broke the rule. "You still trust the trail?" she asked me as we walked. "No," I said. "But you're still following it?" "Because the alternative is worse." She nodded. "Good, just checking." We hiked until dark, then set up camp on an exposed ridge. Easier to see what's coming, harder for the trees to whisper. But that didn't stop them. After midnight, I heard them again. Not voices this time. Laughter. Faint. Cruel. Like the forest had seen something funny in our pain. And right outside the tent, something scratched a message into the dirt with a single long finger. 5 words. "You brought them too far." The scratching stopped just before dawn. Trish wiped away the words in the dirt with the edge of her boot, but Noah had already seen them. His eyes were sunken, and he looked like he hadn't blinked in hours. "You brought them too far," he whispered, repeating it like a curse. "Are we even supposed to be here?" "No," I said. "That's the point. This part of the trail doesn't belong to the maps anymore." Trish stood at the edge of the ridge, peering down into a sea of mist. "Widow's Gap," she said softly. "It's open again." I froze mid-pack. "What?" Noah asked. "What's Widow's Gap?" I answered without turning around. "It's where the rule came from." The story of Widow's Gap isn't in the guidebooks. It's something you only hear after a 5th drink, with a ranger who's about to retire and wants to dump all the skeletons in their closet. Decades ago, long before the national park swallowed this section of the trail, a settlement stood at the base of the gap. Cabins, barns, a chapel, even a one-room schoolhouse. It was wiped out in a single night. Some say it was a storm. Some say it was the earth swallowing its own. But one survivor crawled out. A woman. The widow. She came stumbling into Boone covered in moss and blood, babbling about voices in the trees and the thing that wears your husband's skin. After that, the locals carved a single rule into every marker post from here to Tennessee. Don't step off the trail after sundown. Because what happened in Widow's Gap wasn't an accident. It was an invitation. We descended the ridge that morning. The fog thickened into a wall. Noah's compass spun in circles. Our GPS said we were somewhere off the coast of South Carolina, and the trees got weirder. Wrong bark, branches like arms. One tree had what looked like teeth embedded in the trunk. "I don't think these grew," Trish said. "I think they arrived." Halfway down the slope, the path vanished. Not like it split. I mean, it faded. One moment it was beneath our boots. The next it blurred into the ground like a photograph smeared with a wet thumb. "What do we do?" Noah asked, panic rising in his throat. I crouched low, tracing the faintest outline in the moss. "Trail's still here," I said. "We just have to remember where it is." Trish pulled out her emergency chalk and began marking trees every 10 feet. "We're not the first to come through here, just the dumbest to keep going." We reached the bottom of the gap just before nightfall, and there it was, the settlement, or what was left of it, rotting cabins, an old well with no bottom, a rusted bell tower leaning sideways, and something in the chapel window that didn't move like it should have. "This place looks preserved," Noah whispered, "like someone's been maintaining it." Trish shook her head. This isn't preservation. This is repetition." We crossed through the remnants of a graveyard. All the headstones had the same last name. One of them had fresh dirt piled in front of it, still damp, still breathing. The chapel door was wide open. Inside, the pews were broken. The air was wet. The altar was missing, replaced with a mound of bones and shredded gear. At the top of the mound, an orange lanyard, Mandy's. But it wasn't just hers. There were others. Dozens. Some faded, some cracked. One with a name tag still attached. Charlie Burns, Group B, 1993. I took a slow breath. That's not a bone pile. It's a collection. Noah turned pale. "You think it remembers all of them?" "I think it keeps them." That night the woods didn't whisper. They howled. Not wind. Not wolves. Just the sound of everything screaming at once. a cacophony of broken voices clawing at the edge of reason. We huddled inside the smallest cabin we could find, windows boarded from the inside, like the last person here knew what was coming. "I can't do this," Noah said. "We've followed the rule. We stayed on the trail. Why is it still happening?" Trish didn't answer. She stared at the door, fingers twitching over her knife. I knelt in front of Noah. "Because the rule doesn't guarantee safety," I said. "It just keeps you off the menu." He laughed bitterly. "Then what's chasing us now?" And then, as if summoned, we heard it. A voice, outside the cabin, software measured, familiar. "Dean, buddy, we've got a new group waiting. Rise and shine." I stood slowly. It was me, my own voice, replaying from memory, speaking like I do during the morning orientation. "Everyone grab a water bottle, check your lanyards, and remember the one rule. Say it with me now." Trish clutched her knife. "Dean." I raised a hand. "I know. That's not me." Outside, the voice finished the line. "Don't step off the trail after sundown." And then the handle turned. The cabin door creaked as the handle twisted, slow and deliberate, like whatever was on the other side had time to kill. Trish and I pressed our backs to the far wall. Noah curled into a corner, clutching his pack like it might cast a protection spell if he hugged it hard enough. Then we heard it again, my voice. "Come on, sleepyheads. Trail ain't gonna hike itself." It was cheerful, offensively cheerful. I never sound that chipper in the mornings. I'm a black coffee and don't die kind of guy. I looked at Trish. She mouthed, "It knows you now." Yeah, that's the thing about this place. The longer you stay on the trail, the more it watches, learns, memorizes your walk, your cadence, your phrasing. It doesn't just mimic your voice. It studies your soul, then plays dress-up with it like a kid with a corpse in a puppet kit. The handle turned all the way. The latch clicked. Trish raised her knife. I raised my flare gun, and the door creaked open. To nothing. Just the fog. A dense curtain of pale gray air that hung motionless outside, like it was waiting for permission to come in. I took a cautious step forward. The porch was empty. But the ground? The moss had words pressed into it again. This time it didn't bother being cryptic. "Stop following the trail. It doesn't lead out. It leads home." We didn't sleep. At sunrise, or what passed for it in a place where the sky no longer seemed interested in behaving, we left the cabin and headed deeper into Widow's Gap. Because what choice did we have? The path behind us had collapsed overnight. Literally. The ground where we'd hiked yesterday had sunk into a long, narrow ditch filled with bones and broken lanyards. Forward was the only option. Noah's breathing got worse with every step. Shallow. Panicked. Like he knew something we didn't. "You okay?" I asked. He shook his head, eyes wide. "The chapel. I saw something last night." "When?" "Right before the door started turning. In the rafters. There was something up there." Trish grunted. "Let me guess. Long arms, wrong smile." He nodded slowly. "It wasn't watching us. It was watching the thing pretending to be Dean. Like it was disappointed." That made all three of us stop. I turned to Noah. "You're saying there's more than one?" He looked around the forest. "I don't think it's one thing at all. I think the trail is like a puppet show, and something sitting in the dark, watching how we react, learning. And if we keep following the trail," Trish added, "we keep feeding the show." That evening we found something new. A signpost. Wooden, freshly painted, pristine. It looked like it had been installed yesterday. No rot, no moss, no wear. The arrow on the post pointed ahead and read, "Safe exit, 2 miles." We stopped and stared. "Oh, screw that," Trish said. "Too clean, too obvious. That thing's got trap written in invisible ink." Noah pulled out his compass. It pointed straight west, the opposite direction the arrow was facing. I knelt beside the post. Something about it bothered me more than anything else on this hike. Not the way it looked, but the way it stood, like it had been watching us approach. Then I noticed the base of it wasn't planted in the dirt. It was growing. Roots had twisted down into the soil. The sign wasn't installed. It had grown out of the trail like a tumor. I backed away. It's not wood. Noah leaned in, pale. Then what is it? I think it's bone. We made camp under a natural rock outcropping that night, one with 3 carved faces in the stone. They weren't decorative. They were warning signs. The mouths were sewn shut with moss. The eyes were gouged out, and just beneath one chin, someone had carved in a shaking hand. It wears your voice. It wants your shape. Don't listen. It was too late, because that night it came again. Not in the trees, in the camp, inside the firelight, walking like a man, looking like me. But only from the front, because from the back, it was hollow. Its spine was visible, bent in a perfect arch, like it had been picked clean and then reassembled from memory. It sat beside the fire, didn't speak, just stared at me, smiling. The others froze. Trish started to rise, knife already in hand. But I held her back, because I understood now. It wasn't trying to kill me. It was trying to replace me. All it needed was for me to break the rule, to step off the trail, to enter its world, willingly. And then, poof. Dean's gone. Fake Dean takes over. Maybe starts leading hikes. Maybe smiles a little too wide. Maybe changes the rule, just a little, so more folks vanish. It was patient. I stared at the thing that looked like me, and in its too perfect voice it finally said, "Take a break, Dean. You've earned it." That version of me sat by the fire all night. It didn't blink. It didn't move. It just sat there, mimicking the way I hold my shoulders when I'm exhausted, tilting its head like it had memorized the precise degree of my usual sarcasm. Noah didn't sleep. Trish pretended to, one hand on her knife, the other on the flare. I sat across from it, watching it watch me. Somewhere between 3 and 4 a.m., it tilted its head and said in a voice soaked in static, "You're tired, Dean. Let me carry the rule." That was the first time it said the word, the one that governs everything out here. The rule isn't just advice. It's the key, the spine of this place. It's what keeps the forest in check. And the moment I heard it speak the rule, I knew. It had learned enough. One slip, one wrong step, one surrender to exhaustion, and it could take over. Wear my skin, guide the next group, say the right things, just slightly off. And more hikers would vanish. More trails would open, and something far worse than death would spread. By dawn, the thing was gone. Just gone. Left no prints. No smell. Not even disturbed dirt. Like it had never been there at all. But it had been. My aching joints and twitching nerves were proof. Noah looked hollow. "How do we know? You're still you?" It was a fair question. I tossed him a granola bar, because I'd never offer up the last peanut butter bar if I was some freak in my skin. I hoard these. He laughed barely, but it was enough. Trish just nodded. I checked him around 2 a.m. No rot, no echo, no shimmer behind the eyes. Still human, for now. Appreciate the vote of confidence. We continued the hike. The trail twisted like a corkscrew now, a spiral that felt like it was dragging us deeper even when we walked on level ground. The trees changed again. No bark. Just smooth, pale trunks that looked like old bone. They bent inward over the trail, forming a canopy too low to stand up straight under. And etched along their sides? Names. Hundreds of them. All carved by hand, all in different writing styles. Some looked centuries old. Some were recent. One caught my eye. Mandy P. Right beneath it. She waved. I turned to Noah. How long do you think this place has been collecting people? He didn't answer. He was staring at a different name, Noah C., and beneath it, he followed his own map. He stumbled back like he'd been shot. I didn't. That wasn't here yesterday. No, I said. It wasn't. Trish ran a hand across the wood. It's riding ahead of us now, predicting. That means it's close to cracking us. We stopped at a split log shelter around midday, the kind you see on long-haul hikes, usually full of hiker graffiti and energy bar wrappers. But this one was empty, clean, and full of mirrors. Small ones, hung at head height around the inside. They didn't reflect us quite right. Noah looked taller in his. His reflection blinked slower. Trish's moved half a second late, like a laggy Zoom call from hell. Mine? Mine stared back, and smiled wider than I ever could. No teeth, just a black void where my mouth should be. We didn't stay long. That evening, we crossed a clearing filled with animal skulls. Every one of them faced east. Noah said, "What's that way?" I said, "Nothing we want to meet." We camped near a split in the rocks. The air here was warm. Too warm. And the wind? It whispered in a language that sounded almost like English, but not quite. That's how it lures you, by sounding just close enough to familiar. Trish drew a salt circle around the tent. It wouldn't stop what's out there, but it might delay it long enough for us to realize we were already doomed. "Dean," Noah asked quietly, "do you think this place ever lets people leave?" I was honest. "Only the ones it wants to carry the warning." "Like you?" I didn't answer, because I wasn't sure anymore if I was the warning bearer. Or the bait. That night, the whisper came again. But this time, it didn't use my voice. It used my mother's. "Dean," it said from just beyond the tent wall, "you forgot your coat again. You'll catch cold." I clenched my fists. "You always forget things, baby. You forgot Clint. You forgot Terry. You forgot Mandy." I bit my tongue. Blood filled my mouth. "You forgot what happened to you." Then silence. Then laughter. But it wasn't loud. It was inside the tent. I turned. The zipper was open, and Trish was gone. The zipper was down 6 inches. That's it. 6 inches of open air between us and whatever could reach in without making a sound. Noah was still asleep, or pretending to be. I could see the panic in his eyes, the kind you get when your brain says don't move, don't breathe, maybe they'll forget you're here. Trish was gone. No scream, no struggle, no trail of blood or even broken twigs. Just gone. The salt ring around our tent was untouched. That's what scared me most. Whatever took her didn't enter. It was already inside. I shook Noah awake, gently but firmly. "Trish is gone." He blinked twice, then shook his head. No, that's not. She was just... I heard her breathing. She stopped. He sat up too fast and hit his head on the top of the tent. Didn't even flinch. His hand fumbled for the emergency whistle around his neck, a plastic thing I give every guest that's never once helped in a real situation. Not because it's faulty, but because nothing out here comes when you call. Only what you don't call. We waited for daylight before unzipping the rest of the tent. The forest outside looked exactly the same. Same gnarled trees. Same pale moss. Same dead silence. No broken branches. No signs of a struggle. But 10 feet away, just beyond the faint dirt path we'd stayed loyal to for 10 days straight, sat a single item. Trish's knife. Planted upright in the soil. Balanced. Waiting. I didn't touch it. Noah stared at it, whispering, "Maybe she's testing us. Maybe she put it there, to see if we'd break the rule." I nodded slowly. That's exactly what it wants us to think. And that's when we heard it. Her voice. "Dean?" Software gentle, from deep in the trees. "Dean, I tripped. My leg. I need help." Noah turned toward the sound, eyes wide. "She's alive." "No," I said, and then louder. "That's not her." Dean, please, it hurts, I'm scared. It sounded perfect. Same tone, same accent, same inflection Trish used when she stubbed her toe on a rock back in part 2 and called me a useless denim scarecrow. But Trish was a fighter. Trish didn't plead. And most of all, Trish would never leave her knife behind. Noah covered his ears. It's so real. That's how it gets you, I said. Because once you believe, it doesn't need to drag you off. You'll walk right into its mouth on your own. We left the knife, and the voice followed us for hours. Please. I can't walk. It's cold out here. The farther we walked, the more the voice changed. Slower, wetter, like the thing using it was forgetting how lungs worked. Eventually it just gurgled, then laughed, then stopped. We didn't talk much after that. Noah was unraveling. His hands trembled even when he wasn't moving. His lips mouthed things he didn't say aloud. At one point, I heard him whispering to someone who wasn't there, repeating the rule like a prayer. That evening, we came across a sign we hadn't seen before. Just a crude wooden board nailed to a tree. This is where it begins beneath it. A rope swing, tied to a branch, still swaying. But there was no wind. Noah backed away. I know this place. This was in my dream, right before Clint vanished. I turned to him. You dreamt this exact spot? He nodded. But there were more people, and they were singing. Then he pointed ahead. I squinted. Another sign, maybe 40 yards up the trail. It looked familiar. Too familiar. We jogged toward it, and stopped cold. It was the same sign, same tree, same rope, same board. This is where it begins. I turned around. The way we came? Gone. The path behind us now led to a wall of rock. No sky above, no sound. The trail had folded again, another loop, another trap. That night we made camp in silence. I didn't light a fire. I didn't boil water. I didn't unpack my bedroll. I just sat, eyes open, knife in hand. Noah was across from me, cross-legged, whispering into the dark. I leaned in. What are you saying? He looked up. They told me a secret. Who? He smiled, and it was wrong. Too wide, too calm, too empty. And then, in Trish's voice, he said, I saw the center, Dean. You're not going to like it. When Noah spoke in Trish's voice, I didn't breathe, didn't blink, didn't move a muscle. Because out here, the wrong reaction to the wrong voice gets you swallowed whole. Body, mind, and memory. He stared at me across the dark clearing. The smile stayed wide, frozen. Dean, he whispered. But it wasn't Trish anymore. It was me. My own voice thrown back at me like a twisted mirror. I saw the center. You've been there too, haven't you? I said nothing. Just gripped my knife tighter and shifted my weight slowly. Ready to bolt. Ready to strike. Ready to run straight into whatever horror waited before I let the thing wearing Noah's voice finish the sentence. Then, Noah blinked, and it was him again, sweating, pale, shaking. I don't know what just happened, he said. I didn't say anything, did I? Tell me I didn't say anything. I didn't answer, because I wasn't sure who I was talking to anymore. We didn't sleep that night. I made Noah sit in the exact center of the trail. No edges, no leaning against trees, no wandering off to pee. Hold it, I said. Or use the water bottle like everyone else who's ever hiked with fear in their bones. He laughed, a dry wheeze that didn't sound completely human. Then he whispered, I think the trail is alive. It's not alive, I said. It's worse. It's aware. At sunrise, or the dim blue haze that passes for it now, we walked. The trail didn't look like a trail anymore. No dirt, no footprints. Just a path suggested by the way the trees leaned away from a central line, like they didn't want to touch it. That's how we navigated, by the shape of the fear in the forest. We saw no animals, no bugs, no birds. Even the wind had stopped caring. At one point, Noah said he felt something following us. I said, "That's your shadow." He said, "No. It's mine, but it's not doing what I'm doing." I looked down, and he was right. His shadow lagged, delayed by maybe a second, a full heartbeat behind. Then, as we both watched, it waved. Noah screamed and stomped on it. It didn't help. We didn't talk about it again. That afternoon, we found the fire pit. Old, stone-lined, abandoned, but still warm. Someone had been there recently. There were scraps of paper tucked under the rocks, worn, water-stained, barely legible. One of them read, "I broke the rule. I didn't even mean to. It was just my toes." Another, "He looked like me, but he knew things I never told anyone." And the last, "If you get to the center, don't look at it, just keep walking." Noah crouched beside the fire pit and picked up a stick of half-burnt charcoal. He drew a spiral in the dirt. Not a perfect one. A twisting, broken one. "The trail's not a circle," he whispered. "It's a drain." That's when we heard the crunch, behind us. Not a twig snap. Not an animal. A boot. Deliberate. Slow. I turned. There was someone standing in the trees, wearing a backpack, covered in dust, face hidden in shadow. I raised my knife. They stepped forward into the clearing, and it was Trish. Perfect. Untouched. Smiling. "Hey," she said softly, like nothing was wrong. "Miss me?" Noah took a step back. "How is that possible?" I raised my hand to stop him. "It's not." Trish frowned. "You left me. I got turned around, but I found the trail again. It's me." Noah looked at me, panicking. "How do we know?" "We don't," I said. Trish looked at the dirt. "You always said we'd never leave anyone behind." I tightened my grip on the knife. "Yeah. I also said don't step off the trail after sundown. You remember that?" She nodded slowly. Then she stepped toward us, right down the center of the path. And I froze. Because I'd never told her what the center looked like this far in. It wasn't the trail anymore. It was something else. And she was walking exactly along it. No hesitation. No misstep. Like she knew where it was going. Like something had guided her. Noah whispered, "She knows the trail better than we do." And I realized something. Trish hadn't found the path again. The path had found her, and whatever it had made of her, it had sent back to lead us the rest of the way. She didn't blink. That was the first thing I noticed. Trish walked with perfect confidence along the center of the trail, every footfall landing as if she were being watched, or worse, choreographed. Noah stared like he was seeing a ghost wear his friend's face. "Is that her?" he whispered. "Maybe," I said. "But not only her." Trish stopped 10 paces from us and tilted her head. "If I wasn't me, could I tell you about the time you cried when a snake touched your sock?" That was true. A coral snake slithered across my boot once, and I made a noise so high-pitched the bats took off early. But that didn't mean she was clean. "Knowing memories isn't proof anymore," I said. "The trail stores them." Trish's smile twitched. Not a big movement, just a sliver of something inhuman flickering behind her teeth. Then she said it. The words I hadn't heard since day one. "We're almost there. Just a few more miles." My blood ran cold. Because that phrase, that's what I say? It's my go-to line for nervous guests when they're ready to give up. I'd never said it in front of her on this trip, but she'd heard me say it before. On other hikes. Other groups. The ones we lost. I looked at the path behind her, the spiral in the dirt, the moss curling in toward itself. Noah leaned close. "If we follow her, we make it to the center." "Yeah," I said. "And then what?" "I don't know," I whispered. "But I think that's where the rule stops working." We followed anyway. What choice did we have? The forest behind us was collapsing. Literally. Trees folding inward, roots lifting from the ground, sky melting into ash-colored fog. The trail was the only thing holding shape, and Trish, or whatever she was now, walked ahead like a lighthouse made of bone and memory. Noah whispered, "She's humming." I listened. She was. The same 3 notes over and over. A lullaby rhythm. Flat. Hollow. And every time she hit the 3rd note, a bird flew overhead. Except there were no birds, just shadows of them. Black silhouettes with no wingspan. Not flying. Just hanging in the sky, twitching like dying stars. By midday, we found the second Trish. She was crumpled in the brush 10 feet off the trail, curled up, silent, eyes open, skin pale. It was her, the real her, the one we lost, still wearing her gear, still gripping a flare in one dead hand. Her lips were chewed through. Noah dropped to his knees. She was taken, I said, but not before she fought. I reached down, closed her eyes, and whispered the rule to her one last time. Then I turned to the Trish still standing on the trail. She didn't react, didn't blink. She just kept humming. Noah stood, hands shaking. "Dean, if the trail made her, if it copied her, what happens when we get to the end?" I looked at the spiral carved into the trees ahead, twisting inward like a drain pipe into the earth. "I think it gives her back." That night, the sky changed. It wasn't dusk. It was the end of color. The trees above us bent into a ring, like an eye opening for the first time. And in the center of the trail, just ahead, something began to glow. Pale. Diamond soys like the opposite of firelight. We'd reached it, the center. Not a place, not a clearing, but a door. It stood on the trail like a church doorway with no frame, no building, just an arch of roots and bone and names. Thousands of names, all carved with love and desperation and terror. One of them, right at eye level, was mine. Dean H., and beneath it, in fresh letters, he kept the rule. Trish turned, still smiling, still humming, and finally said, "You can leave now." I looked behind us. The trail had gone dark. The trees were sealed. The forest wasn't there anymore. Just fog and shadow and the feeling of being watched by something that didn't need eyes. Noah whispered, "If we step through that arch, we go home?" I nodded slowly. "I think it's the only way out. But if that thing's guiding us, then we're playing by its rules," I said. "We just have to hope it respects ours." He hesitated, then stepped through, and vanished. Gone. No scream, no flash. Just gone. I turned to Trish. "You staying?" She shook her head. "I already did." And with that, she turned to dust. I stepped through, and the world ended. There was no sound when I crossed through the arch. No flash, no cold, no tug on the soul. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that only exists after something bad has already happened, and before it decides to happen again. I wasn't in the forest anymore. At least not the version I recognized. No trees, no trail, no fog. Just a flat gray plain stretching out in every direction. Above me, no sky. Just a lidless ceiling of shifting clouds, swirling like smoke trapped under glass. And in front of me, a door. Wooden. Simple. Red. Standing alone in the middle of that featureless expanse, like it had been waiting for centuries for someone dumb enough to walk into it. On the front, written in faded gold letters, "Welcome back, Dean." I reached for the knob. Stopped. Listened. Still quiet. But the hairs on the back of my neck were dancing like static. I circled the door once. It was freestanding. No hinges, no support, just rooted into the ground like a tree with one job. Behind it, nothing. Not a frame, not a trick. Just waiting. I opened it and stepped through. I was back on the trail, but not my trail. It looked the same, sure, same tree shape, same path underfoot. But everything was too perfect. The leaves didn't move. The wind didn't blow. Even the birds sounded like they were on a loop. And in the distance, I heard it. A voice. My voice. Giving the safety speech. Stay hydrated, folks. We'll make frequent stops. And remember, there's just one rule out here. I ran. Not because I was scared, because I understood what was happening. The trail was starting over. I crested a ridge and saw them. A new group. 6 hikers, smiling, stretching, laughing. All of them gathered around me, or the version of me this place had created. He looked perfect. Same beard, same hat, same busted knee brace I wore after falling off a boulder last fall. Fake Dean stood at the front of the group, smiling wide. And then he said it. Don't step off the trail after sundown. I nearly threw up. I stayed hidden in the trees, watched as they set off, watched how they trusted him, watched how they looked at him like he was safety wrapped in sarcasm, and watched as the trail, my trail, began to twist again beneath their feet. They didn't notice. They never do. Not until it's too late. Then, I heard a branch snap behind me. I spun. Noah. Or, not my Noah. He looked older, tired, like he hadn't slept since he stepped through the arch. Like time had bent around him the way the trail does to everyone who lingers too long. You made it, I said. He nodded. Didn't think I would. You followed the fake Trish. He winced. Yeah, me too. He looked down at his hands. But I don't think we left. I looked around. What do you mean? He pointed toward the fake Dean and the new group now vanishing into the bend ahead. We didn't leave, Dean. We graduated. That night, we sat by a fire that neither of us lit. It had been waiting, just like everything else. Noah sharpened a stick slowly. You know what they're going to ask you next, right? I nodded. When they vanish one by one, when they hear voices, when the trail folds, someone's going to ask how to survive it. And I'll tell them the rule, I said. Like I always do. He looked at me. No, he said, like it tells you to. That's the worst part. When you've been here long enough, you start to wonder if the rule protects you, or feeds it. Because the people who keep the rule, they don't leave. They just live long enough to pass it down. And maybe that's what it wants. A steady stream of cautious believers, ones who never step off, ones who teach others not to run, ones who lead. Noah left the next morning, said he had something to find, said the forest owed him an answer. I stayed, and watched the next group arrive. 6 of them, like always. And when they gathered in front of me, I smiled, held up the orange lanyards, and said in a voice that didn't feel entirely like mine, Welcome to the Appalachian experience. There's only one rule. Say it with me now. And they did. Together. Don't step off the trail after sundown. The new group was easy to read. They always are. 3 college kids with hiking poles they barely knew how to hold. 1 divorced dad trying to reconnect with nature through beef jerky and trauma. A retired nurse with crystal necklaces. And a quiet woman with pale eyes who said she'd been here before. That last one gave me pause. Nobody comes back. Not without leaving pieces behind. She just smiled when I asked about her last visit and said, Only made it to day 3. I stepped off to cry behind a rock, saw my own face looking back at me. Then she tapped her temple and added, I learned my lesson. We set off. The trail was behaving again, wide, clear, sun-dappled. Breezes moved the trees just right, as if the forest wanted to lull them in with the illusion of a peaceful hike before it started whispering things they used to dream about. I kept my eyes sharp, watched for signs, because here's the secret I never told the others. The rule? It's not just for survival. It's for containment. Back when I was still human, I used to wonder why stepping off the trail mattered so much. Why the forest didn't just take you on the trail. Why it waited for that moment. The step, the sneeze, the fall, the slip, before it pounced. And now I know. Because it's not stepping off that changes you. It's the forest recognizing you've stopped trusting the rule. That one moment of doubt? It opens the door. Not out. In. Day 2. The nurse found a rabbit, or what looked like one. It was twitching in the underbrush, missing its front half. Still alive, still blinking. She bent down, off trail, just a little. I grabbed her wrist mid-reach. Don't. She looked up, startled. It's in pain. It's bait, I said. She froze. Then, almost as if the forest didn't appreciate me ruining its little trap, the rabbit turned its head fully around, backward, and smiled. I pulled her back onto the path. The smile lingered in the trees for another 1.5 miles. By nightfall, the dad was panicking. I left my phone back there, he said, pointing behind us toward a part of the trail that no longer existed. No, you didn't, I said. He swore. Rummaged through his pack, emptied it twice. I had it. I swear I did. The pale-eyed woman said, "If it's gone, it's meant to be gone." He laughed like she was joking. She wasn't. That night he snuck off while everyone else was asleep. Didn't go far. Just stepped off the trail to check one last time. I heard it. The crunch, the whisper, the shuffle. I didn't go after him. The forest doesn't like when you interrupt its lessons. Day 3. 5 left. I gave them the speech. The one I always give after the first incident. It's not about fear, I said. It's about obedience. This place doesn't care if you're scared. It cares if you think you're above the rule. One of the college kids snorted. This is all part of the act, right? Some viral marketing thing. The nurse said, I saw my dead husband on the trail last night. Everyone went quiet. The pale-eyed woman nodded slowly. Then you're almost ready. Nobody asked what she meant, but I saw it in their faces, the cracks forming, the invitation settling in. That evening, the trees began humming again. Same 3-note lullaby Trish once hummed, only now it came from the leaves themselves. The vibrations hit your chest before they hit your ears. The forest was watching, and I was too, because I needed to know. Which of them would follow the rule? Which would break? Which would teach the next group? That's what I've become now. Not a guide, a filter. The rule is a sieve, and I'm its voice. That night, the nurse asked me a question. Is there a way out? I thought about it. Then I told her the truth. Only if you take someone else's place. She didn't ask what that meant. Didn't need to, because her shadow had already started smiling without her. I sat by the fire and waited for the next test. Somewhere behind us, the dad screamed, but it wasn't his voice anymore. Just a perfect replica of his final memory, played back like a voicemail from hell. Wait. Guys, I see the trail. I see it. Then silence. Then laughter. Then the wind carried something soft and impossible. Dean. But it wasn't a plea. It was a greeting. Something had arrived. Something old. And it knew me by name. When the wind called my name, the fire dimmed. Not out. Just subdued. Like it was waiting, too. The pale-eyed woman looked up from where she sat, sharpening a stick. You heard it? She asked. I nodded. Then it's close. That's all she said. She didn't ask what it was. She didn't need to. People like her, the ones the trail spits back out and then pulls in again, they've already touched the edge of it. Felt it brushing their thoughts. You don't talk about it. You just listen for the footsteps that never match your pace. And you pray they don't stop. Because when they do, it means it's right behind you. Only 4 left now. The dad was gone. The youngest college kid vanished with him. Just walked off into the trees during the middle of a ghost story like it was the most natural thing in the world. That's how it works. It doesn't chase you. It invites you. You don't scream when it happens. You smile. The pale-eyed woman leaned toward me while the others slept. I saw my reflection in the stream, she whispered. It smiled back. I wasn't smiling. What did it look like? Like me, but without the doubt. That's when I knew it had marked her, and that it wasn't done using her yet. At dawn, I found the others gathered around something in the middle of the trail. It was a tree stump, new, still wet, which would have been fine if it hadn't just appeared overnight. In the center of the stump, a spiral carved with surgical precision. In the center of the spiral, a tooth. Not human, too long, too curved, and resting next to it, like an offering, an orange lanyard. Mine. I didn't touch it, didn't have to. Everyone knew what it meant. The trail wanted me to choose, to step off, to test the rule, to see if I'd grown past it, or if I was still tethered to the idea that I had anything left to lose. Maybe it's trying to help, one of the college kids said. By returning something of yours, added the other. I didn't say anything, because I'd said it all before, dozens of times, to dozens of other faces, and it never mattered. The forest always gets the last word. Around noon, the trail started to widen. Too wide. That's how you know you're being watched, when the trail starts to feel auditorium big, like a stage where something enormous can sit and watch you move. And on both sides, no trees, no wildlife, just the hint of faces in the bark. Some smiling, some crying, some stitched shut at the mouth. One of them looked like Trish. I didn't point it out. The others needed hope more than horror. That night, we reached a clearing with a structure I hadn't seen in years. A wooden lookout tower. Still standing. Still glowing with a single flickering bulb at the top. Last time I saw it, a ranger had climbed up to call in a missing persons report. By the time we got there, he'd nailed his tongue to the wall with a tent peg. Still alive. Smiling. Said it kept whispering the rule back to him, over and over, until it changed one word, just one. Don't step off the trail before sundown. We never found out what happened when he tried it, but we never saw him again either. This time the tower was empty, except for a chair, facing outward, and a logbook open to a page with my name on it. Dean H. cleared for reintegration. No date, no signature, just that. I tore the page out and stuffed it in my coat. The pale-eyed woman appeared behind me without a sound. You going back? I shook my head. I don't think I ever left. She smiled. Then you're ready. For what? To lead them deeper. At sunrise, only 3 hikers remained. The others? Well, their names were gone from the emergency roster I kept in my pack. Scrubbed, like they were never here. No photos, no extra packs, no footprints in the dirt. The trail had consumed them fully, and now it was asking me how far I'd go to keep the rule alive. That's when I felt it. A hand on my shoulder. No weight, no pressure, just contact. Software intentional. And I didn't turn, because I already knew who it was. Something old, something wearing the voice of every person I'd failed. And it whispered, "Tell them the rule, Dean." So I did. I told them the rule again that morning. Same words, same tone, same forced smile. There's only one rule out here, and it's simple. Don't step off the trail after sundown. They nodded, like they always do. One of the college kids, Jackson, I think, asked, "What happens if you do?" The pale-eyed woman answered before I could. "You disappear, or worse, you come back." That quieted him down. We hiked in silence for a while after that. The forest likes when we go quiet, makes it easier to listen. And lately I think it's been listening back. I used to think the trail was a place. Now I know it's a threshold. The longer you walk it, the thinner your reflection gets. You forget things. Little things at first. What day it is, the smell of your home, your own handwriting. Then bigger things, like why you came here in the first place. or if you were ever real to begin with. By mile 13, I couldn't remember what my voice used to sound like before the trail started copying it. We found a mile marker around midday, a real one, wooden, nailed to a dead tree that hadn't existed yesterday. Mile 0, not 13, not 2, 0. Like the forest had rewound something. No, Jackson muttered. We've been walking for days. The pale-eyed woman crouched beside the marker. We're being told we haven't started yet. Why? Because the trail's hungry again. She traced a finger across the bark, and beneath the carved lettering we saw it. A notch, freshly dug, as if a name had been removed. Mine. We pushed forward. Around mile 0.5, the trail began to shift. What used to be dirt was now flesh-colored. Not soil, not sand. Skin. Stretching ahead of us. Pliable. Warm to the touch. Veined. I warned them not to touch it. Didn't stop Jackson. He poked it once with the tip of his pole. The ground twitched, and something underneath it purred. That night, I didn't light a fire. Too risky. When the trail's skin starts pulsing, heat wakes it up. We camped in a tight circle, backs to one another, eyes open, lips sealed. The pale-eyed woman didn't sleep. She sat cross-legged, hands in her lap, murmuring to the sky. Soon, she said. What happened soon? I asked. She didn't answer, but something behind her did. A whisper from the woods, in my voice. Soon, you'll finally understand your purpose. By sunrise, Jackson was gone. No scream, no signs of struggle, just his empty boots sitting neatly in the center of camp, tied, aligned, laces tucked. Next to them, a single note, carved into the trail's skin with his pocket knife. I followed the song. We never heard it. Not us. But he did. And that's all it takes. The trail doesn't need a loud victim. It just needs a willing one. That left two. Me and her. The pale-eyed woman. We didn't speak for hours. Didn't need to. By this point, we weren't hiking through the trail anymore. We were the trail. We knew the turns before they arrived. We recognized the shadows before they passed. And we both started to hear the same thing. A voice. Calling from ahead. Not behind. Not the trees. The center. It was laughing. And in between the laughter, time to make your choice, Dean. I stopped walking. Turned to her. You feel it? She nodded. It's ready. For me. She looked at me with something that wasn't quite sympathy. Or for what's left of you. The trees began to part. Not naturally, like curtains pulled by invisible hands. And beyond them, not a clearing. A room, rectangular, wooden, flickering lanterns, benches aligned in rows, a podium. And behind it, me, wearing the same jacket, same patch on the sleeve, same knife scar across the left cheek. Except this version was smiling. The real kind. The deep kind. The kind I haven't made since before I stepped off the trail that one night years ago to grab a dropped flashlight. He raised a hand, beckoned me forward. Behind me, the pale-eyed woman whispered, "Choose which version walks out, Dean." The version of me behind the podium looked rested, whole. The kind of guy who gets 8 hours of sleep, eats actual vegetables, and hasn't had to watch strangers dissolve into the trees for a living. He waved again, and his voice hit me like warm static. You can stop now. Let me take it from here. I didn't move. Behind me, the pale-eyed woman whispered, "This is how the trail resets itself." "He's not real," I muttered. She shook her head. "Neither are you. Not anymore." I stepped into the wooden room. The benches were filled with faces, familiar ones. Clint, Terry, Mandy, Noah, even Trish. They all sat still, hands folded in their laps, eyes fixed on the fake me behind the podium. None of them blinked. None of them breathed. Just, watched. As if they were waiting for something. Or someone. I turned back to the pale-eyed woman. She stood at the threshold. "You coming in?" She smiled. "I've already been here." "What happens if I take his place?" "You finally rest." That sounded nice. Too nice. The fake me tapped the podium. "You always knew it would end here. You're not meant to guide forever. You're tired." "I'm not done." "Yes, you are." His smile widened. "They won't remember the difference. Not once I put on the voice, the walk, the grief." He stepped down from the podium, moving just like I move when my knee's acting up. Same limp, same little groan. "You'll fade. Quietly. Painlessly. The trail will absorb you just like it did the others. You'll be part of it again." "And the new guests?" I asked. "The next hikers?" He shrugged. "They'll learn the rule. I'll teach it better than you ever could." I clenched my fists, because deep down, I believed him. That's when the pale-eyed woman stepped inside. "You asked what happens if you choose not to leave," she said to me. "But you never asked what happens if you fight." She handed me something. A flare. Old. Rusted. One of Trish's. I held it tight, looked at the imposter version of myself. "I've given everything to this place," I said, "but I'm not giving you my voice." His smile cracked. Literally. Split down the middle like a rotten pumpkin. The illusion slipped. His arms got longer. Skin glitched. Smooth one moment, veiny the next. The faces in the benches all turned toward me, eyes glowing faintly now. And the fake dean opened his mouth too wide and screamed. The room warped. The benches collapsed into bone dust. The walls peeled back into trees. And the sky turned black. Not night. Absence. Like something had removed the concept of light altogether. I lit the flare. Red light exploded outward. And for the first time since I stepped off that trail years ago, the forest recoiled. The pale-eyed woman grabbed my arm. "You get one chance." "Then show me the way out." She didn't move, just pointed down. At the trail, still glowing red under my flare, still pulsing like it was breathing, still waiting. "But that just leads back to the start," she said. "But not for you. For them." She stepped into the woods and vanished. I turned back toward the trail, held up the flare, and walked. Every step felt like it took a year off my life. Voices screamed at me from the trees. "Dean, don't! You belong to us, now! I know your name! You broke the rule!" But I kept going. One foot, then another, and then sunlight. Real sunlight. A breeze that smelled like grass, not rot. And up ahead, a trailhead sign. Weathered. Cracked. Real. With a single line carved deep into its frame. "Welcome back, Dean." I stumbled into the parking lot like a man born again in reverse. My old Chevy Trailhawk was still parked where I'd left it, covered in dust, keys in the ignition. Inside, on the passenger seat, a clipboard, a fresh list, 6 names, and a sticky note. "They're ready. Tell them the rule." The sticky note on the passenger seat was written in my own handwriting, which was funny because I didn't remember writing it, didn't remember driving back, didn't remember leaving, but there it was. Neat, blocky script, unmistakably mine. "They're ready. Tell them the rule." Underneath, the new list of names. 6 of them. A fresh group. They always come in 6. I used to think that was coincidence. Then I realized it's rhythm. The forest moves like a heartbeat. Slow, steady, repetitive. 6 is the tempo, and every beat needs a pause. That pause is me. I sat in the Trailhawk for a while, engine off, letting the sun soak into my skin. Real sun, real heat. It felt wrong, like a dream wearing daylight. Then, I saw the new name. At the bottom of the list, not typed, not printed, handwritten. Dean H., and beside it, Observer. I stared at it for a long time, because that wasn't my job title. It was a warning. I met the new group at the trailhead later that afternoon. Fresh shoes, fresh packs, cell phones still buzzing with service, smiles that hadn't yet tasted the silence of the woods. They joked, took selfies. One of them asked if there'd be bears. Another one asked if they were allowed to forage. Then the quiet one, always one quiet one, asked the question that mattered. Are there any rules? I took a breath, felt my voice shift into place like an old pair of boots. Just one, I said. Don't step off the trail after sundown. They laughed nervously. A few nodded. One girl wrote it down in a little weatherproof notebook, like it was just advice, not a lifeline. We started walking. The trail felt the same at first, almost normal. But I knew better now. Knew what waited if I got too comfortable. Knew how the air changes just before the ground does. I kept my eyes on the trees. They didn't blink, but they noticed. The forest had seen me return, and it wasn't sure what to do with me yet, because something had changed. I didn't belong to it anymore, but I didn't belong outside of it either. I was between, a ghost in hiking boots. That night we set up camp near a familiar overlook, Deerbone Ridge, the place where I first told them the rule, where Clint laughed, where the silence began. The new group sat around the fire, swapping stories. I stayed on the edge, staring at the trees, waiting for the first whisper. It always starts small. Someone swears they see a shadow. Someone else hears a voice. The wind changes direction. But not tonight. Tonight, the forest was still. Too still. Like it was waiting for me. The quiet one, the girl with the notebook, sat beside me. She was maybe 20, wore a patch-covered jacket that didn't match the season. Her eyes were too sharp for someone her age. "You've done this before," she said. I nodded. "A few times." She didn't look away. "Do you remember your first group?" I froze. "How'd you know to ask that?" She smiled. "Because this isn't my first trip either." And then she opened her notebook. Page after page. Sketches, notes, maps, names, dates. And near the back, a charcoal rubbing of the logbook from the tower in Widow's Gap. My name, underlined twice. Cleared for reintegration. I stood up, heart pounding. "Who are you?" "I told you," she said, smiling. "I'm in the group. Number you're something else." She tilted her head, the exact same way Trish used to when she caught someone lying. "I came back for you," she said, "because the trail won't last much longer." My mouth went dry. "What do you mean?" "You broke something, Dean. You stepped through the arch and said no. You fought it. That wasn't part of the pattern. And now?" She stood up beside me. "Now the trail's waking up." "And what are you?" She didn't answer, just pointed behind me. I turned. The other 4 hikers were gone. Not vanished, just gone. No screams, no trail. And in the center of camp, a new clipboard, with only 2 names left. Dean H. Observer, Evelyn K. Witness. I looked back at her. She wasn't smiling anymore. "It's your last trip," she said. And the trail behind her began to move. Not the trees. The path. Curling. Rising. Opening like a mouth. The trail doesn't bend. Not like this. It doesn't rise like a wave or unfurl like a tongue. But tonight, it did. The path behind Evelyn twisted upward like something alive, uncurling from the earth, wide and veined and breathing. It wasn't a path anymore. It was a throat. And I think it was mine. A mirror of every step I'd taken. Every wrong turn. Every moment I'd whispered the rule to someone knowing full well it wouldn't save them. Not really. Because the rule wasn't made to protect them. It was made to preserve the trail. Evelyn didn't flinch. She stared into the rising path like it was an old friend finally remembering her name. "The trail's done pretending," she said. It doesn't want followers anymore. It wants roots. What the hell does that mean? I asked. She pointed at me. You've led enough people. You've given enough warnings. You've lasted longer than most. That means it sees you as foundation material. I shook my head. I didn't ask for this. But you stepped off, didn't you? She said, calm. Even if it was just to help someone else. I came back. That's why it picked you. She held up her notebook again. On the last page, a drawing of me. Not a sketch, a map. My body outlined in lines and symbols like veins on a tree trunk, words written along my arms and chest like carvings. Keep the rule, they won't listen, observe, replace. I didn't draw this, she said. I woke up with it after the last trip. My first trip. Back when I was the quiet one. And now? Now I'm the last witness, she said. That's what the trail needs before it eats the guide. A final witness. And what happens when you're gone? The next one writes the rule. I wanted to scream, to run, but the path behind me curled tighter. It remembered the faces I let vanish, the ones I couldn't save, the ones I didn't try to, and worst of all, the ones who had trusted me when I said, "It'll be okay. Just follow me. Stay on the trail." Evelyn stepped onto the spiraling path. The ground didn't fight her. It welcomed her. Every footprint lit faintly with gold as she walked toward the center. The eye. The place I'd crossed once before. But this time, it looked different. Not an arch. Not a doorway. A mirror. Standing on the trail wrapped in bark and vine. A full-length reflection of me. Except it blinked. And grinned. And behind its smile, I saw them. All of them. The faces. Clint. Terry. Trish. Mandy. Noah. They were inside it. Not dead. Stored. Like memories. Like instructions. Like voice presets. Evelyn looked over her shoulder. You can't go forward, Dean. Not anymore. Then what? She nodded toward the clipboard still sitting on the log beside the fire. 2 names. One stays. One tells the story. I walked over slowly, hand shaking. The list hadn't changed. Dean H. Observer Evelyn K. Witness. And beside it, something new written in blood-red ink. One must finish. One must warn. I turned to Evelyn. Is there any way out? She didn't lie. There's a way through. But you can't take it with you. Not your face, not your name, not your voice. I stared back at the mirror. The trail was opening again, but this time it wasn't a passage. It was a replacement form, a vessel. Evelyn nodded once and whispered, You choose who leaves. You choose who guides. The wind stopped. The trees bent low, and the reflection stepped forward, smiling, arms wide, mouth full of memories. And the voice that came out of it wasn't mine anymore. It was Evelyn's. The reflection of Evelyn stepped out of the mirror like it had always belonged here. Same jacket, same pale eyes, same half smile she used when asking impossible questions. Only now she didn't blink, didn't breathe. She just stood in the center of the path, looking at me, waiting. Behind her, the mirror stayed open. Not glass, not shadow, something in between. It pulsed like a heartbeat, and I knew what it was. The trail's mind, the core, the place all the voices go. And it was asking me to finish what I started. Evelyn turned to me, flesh and blood Evelyn, the one still breathing beside the fire. I told you, she said. The trail needs 2, one to walk into it. She nodded at the mirror, and one to walk away. My hand drifted toward the clipboard one more time. The names hadn't changed, but now there was a third line. Dean H. Root Evelyn K. Voice. Guide. A blank space, still empty, waiting. I looked back at her. The real her. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. Because we both knew what the forest wanted. It had stopped playing tricks, stopped imitating. It didn't want echoes anymore. It wanted permanence. Something solid to anchor its pattern. A final guide. One last hiker to teach the rule and make others believe it. Because that's the only thing that keeps it alive. Belief. The rule works because people follow it. Because they fear it. Because someone tells it to them with just enough conviction that they hold it like religion. So I made a decision. I turned to the reflection. To the trail behind it. A twisting path of pulsing veins and infinite forests and recycled fear. And I stepped toward it. One foot, then the other. The ground welcomed me like soil hugging a buried seed. I felt the voices rush in, not screaming, singing. The same 3-note lullaby Trish once hummed. The one the trees breathed when they thought we weren't listening. And as I crossed the threshold, I looked back. At Evelyn. At the clipboard. At the firelight flickering against a world too tired to burn. And I whispered, "Tell them the rule." Now, I wait. Not in a tent. Not in a ranger shack. Not even in a body. I wait in the trail. In the bend of a branch that shouldn't twist that way. In the whisper behind your left shoulder at 2:17 a.m. In the boot prints that don't match anyone in your group. You won't see me, but you'll feel me. Watching. Guiding. Correcting. Because someone has to remind you. Don't step off the trail after sundown.